What is that Pokemon? I don't know. All right, let's get started. Today's demos, I want to show you what web extensions are. It's going to be the big crux of today. But I want to start just by going over the homework. So right now you have everything you need for this homework. You should be able to complete all 5 objectives at this point. Today's lecture and Friday's lecture are more or less like nice to knows. It's things that you should know about web development. You should be aware of, especially if you're going into web development. But it's not something that's in a homework assignment in this course. Is the only reason it's a nice to know. They probably should be, especially Ajax on Friday. Should be, used to be, in fact, but it's front-end stuff, so I don't know. I cut all the front-end requirements. But let's take a look at this, and just to make sure everybody's on the same page with what Homework 2 is, and hopefully you're all well on your way to completing this thing. I know that's optimistic. I know that's naive, but that's where I would expect you to be. Probably done with Objective 3 by now would be my expectation, where I would want students to be at this point. This homework revolves around this form. We have a form with a comment field, which is a text area, and a file. Oh, I'd never talked about text area in class. I guess I can talk about it right now. It's like an input, except you get to specify the number of rows and columns, and you'll get a big old text area. So I have a 6-row, so 6 lines, and then 40-character wide text area. And that's all I need to say about that. And then a file, so you can upload a file, and then a button so you can submit it. Objective 1 is parsing this comment. You're going to get a multi-part form request. Objective 1 is parsing that comment, getting that comment out of that multi-part form request. I recommend, hopefully most of you have done this. If you really haven't started the homework, I recommend you do this. Right from Objective 1, write your full code to parse this format in a very generic sense. I'd strongly recommend that. Write your overall parser that's going to get all the good information out of that multi-part form request, or at least what I did in lecture, where you take the name of each field and map it to the content of that field. Once you have the name, you can make assumptions on it pretty safely, at least for this assignment, that if you have comment, you know the text for that, the body of that part is going to be plain text, and it's going to contain the comment of that submission. Same with the file. Once you have the part named upload, you can assume that that's a JPEG image. So you don't really have to parse the rest of the headers if you don't really feel like it. You can do what I did in lecture last time. Out in production, you would want to write the full parser, or more accurately, use a library that does all the parsing for you. So once you write that parser to split all of the parts into their name and the body of that part as bytes, because your image can never be converted to a string, then you can get started on the objectives. The text form, store that text of the comment, and then display them all on your main page. So you also have to think about HTML templating. This was the template engine that I showed in lecture. You're welcome to use that, but please understand how it works. Don't just copy it character for character. I've already seen that in office hours a few times, where you just copy it character for character, come to office hours and say, I have no idea how this works, which, I mean, I'll help you out, that's fine. But, I mean, I don't know. I thought I explained how it works in lecture, but if not, you know, I guess I can't be mad at that, can I? But if you don't understand how it works, you know, you can just build your own, that gets the job done in a different way, in like a simpler way. Mine's decently complex. It's very flexible. If you want to build a simpler one, that's fine. But get that text form, get all that data on your page, rendered on your page. And then Objective 2, same thing, but with the image uploads. Get those images rendered on your page too. So this is just adding that image tag to your HTML template. The biggest part here is making sure you have that multi-part form parser that never treats the data as a string. That's the big challenge with Objective 2. Objective 2 is saying, when you did Objective 1, you did write that full multi-part form parser, right? You did everything? All right, show me. That's what Objective 2 is saying. The big thing worth repeating is making sure the bytes of the image are never, ever, ever decoded as a string. You will corrupt your image. Nothing will work. Nothing's going to work after that. You also want to make sure you're not splitting the image on new lines. That /r/n, we had a demo in lecture. That /r/n, even the /r/n/r/n, the 4 bytes, that byte sequence might appear in your image somewhere. So if you're splitting that image on those bytes, you're only going to get part of your image. You're going to lose some of your data there. Once you have all your images and you're rendering to the screen, rendering them to your HTML, just put the path of the images into an image tag, an image element as the source, and then the browser is going to get all of your HTML and then make more requests for your image. Just like the sample page from homework 1, you delivered HTML that had an image with a source of image/flamingo.jpg. You didn't put the image in the HTML itself. You just put a path to that image in your HTML, and then the browser made another request for flamingo.jpg, for JPEG. So just put them in your image tags. You already have a path that hosts images. You did that for homework 1. So use that same path, use that same idea to host your images that are stored on your machine. I recommend that you store the images on disk in your main container, in your apps container, and then store just the image file name in the database. So the data does have to persist. If you do that, both pieces of data do persist, and you're still using the database, which is a requirement. But we typically don't store big blobs of bytes in databases. They support it, they can do it, but it's not good practice. It's not a good habit to get into. So we'll store the images separately on disk, preferably with a naming convention, like image 1, image 2, image 3 is perfectly fine. And then when users request them from your template, you'll render all that to your page, and they'll make requests for all those images. Make sure you're not allowing them to access arbitrary files in your path. I believe that was last Friday. I had the demo where I got the server code through Postman. Don't let them access arbitrary files. Just by removing slashes, that'll suffice. That'll be enough to prevent that, at least for purposes in this course. A very savvy attacker might be able to get around that in some creative way, but for this course, that's what we're looking for. Then objective 3 is saying, okay, you got image uploads, add a buffer to that. Let's send really large images where you're going to have to buffer. You're going to have to read from the TCP socket multiple times. The logistics of that will be a little bit different for each language, no matter what language you're using. And I showed a demo in JavaScript and Python, which covers the 2 main approaches of how these TCP libraries work. I haven't seen a library in a language that works vastly different from one of those 2. That's pretty much the 2 camps that they'll fall into. So get your buffering going. Objective 4, you can be doing this all along. I had a student talk to me about Objective 4, feeling like they were missing the point of Objective 4. They're like, this was kind of free, like I didn't do anything, because they were already using their database in the previous objectives. And I'm like, yeah, that's all I want. By the time you get to Objective 4, this should feel free. Just make sure that stuff is in the database, that it can persist through a restart. Your image files, they're going to be saved to disk. Like hopefully you're not just saving the bytes in a data structure in memory, save those to disk. But the comments and the file names, those should be stored in the database. So if you're doing that all along, which, you might as well because you have to do it anyway, this should feel free. This isn't much. Because you already have practice with databases from homework 1, this shouldn't be too big of a deal, but just make sure it's persistent. It's kind of a cool down. Objectives, I guess all of objectives 1, 2, and 3 are the crux of the difficulty. That's the really tough part. Getting your multi-part form parsing working in a way that works with images without converting the images to strings. That's the bulk of the difficulty of this homework, which happens at objective 2. And then getting your buffering can be a little challenging to get it just right. Objective 4 is kind of a cool down in difficulty. Hopefully. Some of you might have Docker issues still. Hopefully not. And then slapping cross-site request forgery tokens on there. I don't think this part is if you can get through objectives 1 through 3, you can do objective 5 pretty easily. It's adding another element to the form that's going to be a randomly generated token by your server. Store those tokens, and I don't believe I put... Yeah, I didn't put it. And if it's not in the testing procedures, by the way, you're not required to do it. I didn't specify that these cross-site request forgery tokens need to persist across the restart, so these don't need to be in your database. You can store these in a data structure, that's fine. So if you have just a list or an array that stores these tokens, and then whenever somebody makes a request, go through your multi-part form parser, which hopefully you wrote a generic one in Objective 1, grab the cross-site request forgery token, and check to see if that is in your list of tokens. If you have generic stuff through Objectives 1 through 3, or 1 and 2, I suppose, this one should feel pretty free as well. But if you don't have that generic multi-part form parsing code, if you did do what I see a lot of students do in this course, unfortunately, and just kind of hack your way through the multi-part form parsing and not actually parse anything, then you got a little more work to do on Objective 5 when you add a third element to your form. And that's homework 2. We're at the point where homework 2 is kind of out of my hands, aside from office hours, of course. Other than that, it's out of my hands and it's in your hands. You're ready to do all of homework 2. So with that, does anybody have questions on this? What is that Pokemon is the question. Yeah, we will check that. This was a loophole that I'm trying to plug up from last semester. We will test by appending extra characters to the end of your token. So be aware of that in Objective 5. So this was a loophole that I saw last semester. Students would take the entire request, the entire HTTP request, go through their tokens as bytes and say, does this request contain this sequence of bytes? And if it contained any of those sequence of bytes from their tokens, they'd say, this request contains my token. I ain't doing no parsing. I ain't doing no multi-part form parsing bullshit. I'm just going to check if the entire request contains my token, and I'm done. No, that's not how we do anything. I saw so many students do that last semester. It saddened me each time because what are you learning by doing that? I don't know. I feel like you're bypassing the entire point of this. So we are going to append extra characters to the end of the token and then submit, just to make sure you're not using that loophole. You already did Objective 4 without noticing it. Yeah. Yeah, and what's your database is already set up from homework 1, so it's sitting right there. Why not use it? Yeah. Well, wait. With a caveat, you do have to be using Docker Compose for that. Okay. So Docker Compose has to be being used in that second container. So the big learning objective for this one is having 2 containers that communicate with each other. That's the big thing that I want you to do, and we're doing that through a database that runs in a separate container, which is a very common use case. If you have a separate container running SQLite, then yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah. But if you use SQLite that has the database in the same container as your app, then no. But the images you can store in the container of your app, but you have to have some storage that's in a separate container, so you get practice communicating across containers. Even if that second container just has a text file or a JSON file and it saves directly to disk, I'd be okay with that too. You'd actually have to do more work to do that, and I'd be happy about that. But you do have to use a second container for your storage, for some storage. And even if, I was talking to the TAs, I'm like, technically I'd allow that. If you use like MongoDB Atlas, a separate database, an offsite database, but you connect to it through a second container, I'd be okay with that too. If you sent a request to a second container and that container forwarded the request to your offsite database, I still get what I want. You communicate it across 2 containers, and you're gonna probably do a lot more work doing that than just setting up a container with MongoDB. So you'd actually be learning more. Who am I to say? If you're learning stuff, I'm happy. Yeah, Nicholas, just had me really overthinking the one with Docker volumes and stuff. And objective 4, so when we're talking about Docker, you don't have to do anything with volumes, if anybody else has that question that Nicholas had. It has to persist a restart using Docker compose restart. Where is it? My eyes, there it is. Using Docker compose restart. Docker compose restart does not blow away your containers. It just stops the container and starts the container again. So it'll wipe out anything in RAM, but it won't wipe out anything that's supposed to persist. So you don't have to use a volume. A volume is where you could destroy the complete container itself, but the volume is stored on your local disk. And then when you start the container up, the volume can still be used for that container. We don't need that level of persistence. Maybe someday in this course, but I don't know. At that point, it's becoming a Docker course, and I want to get back into web development. That said, it's only one line in the Docker compose file, so it's not much pain. A little confused on storing the... Oh, man, where am I? A little confused on storing the file name in the database. What is the purpose of that again? So you need to associate a comment with an image. So this is like an image bulletin board where users can upload an image and a comment, and then somebody replies with an image and a comment. So the image and the comment need to be associated with each other. So when you render a comment to the screen, you need to get the image right next to it. That image needs to be associated. That's one post, is the image and the comment. What's that? Somebody looking at your page needs, it can be below, but somebody looking at your page should understand that that image and that comment are one thing. That's one post that a user made. Like an image bulletin board. We're effectively, it's effectively 4chan for anyone wanting to make the connection. That's what we're building right here. It's all anonymous. And it's an image and a comment. But you need to store the comment along with the image. So when you read that, you know which image to render next to that comment. So that's the only reason you're storing the file name. You can't do all the comments here and then all the images down here, which is what you would end up doing if you didn't store the image file names in the database. You also need some way to know which images have been uploaded, which images you need to render. So at some level, if you have an image 1, image 2, image 3 naming convention in the database, you would still have to store how many images to render. If you have 10 images uploaded in that database somewhere, you'd have to store 10. Or else after a restart, how do you know how many images to render? I mean, maybe you take, maybe there's some cheese here. Maybe you take the number of comments. That might work. And if everything's sequential, maybe you can get away with that without the file name in the server. This is the first comment, so image 1 goes with this. You know what? I wouldn't be mad at that. Make your second container connect to Google Sheets. Any confused? Do we need to support a comment that only have image? I guess. I don't know. I mean, we won't test for that, but I think it'd be hard to not support that. Like if you only have an image and you just leave the comment text area blank, you're still going to get a part in the multi-part request that's just the empty string. And you would end up storing the empty string in your database. I think it'd be hard to not support that if you support comments. But if that's honestly your only bug, I think I'd be okay with that. Because in reality, in practice, you'd probably reject that request. You'd say, hey, type a comment. What are you doing? What should you do if you didn't get the database from homework 1? You got to get the database. I mean, so I try to limit what we call cascading failure, where you don't get something on homework 1 and then it catches up to you on homework 2. I try to limit that, but some things will have that effect. Especially like just general request parsers. You're going to use that on all 4 homeworks. There's nothing I can do about that. The database, you're going to use the database on all 4 homeworks. That's just part of building web apps. What we call a full stack web app, if you ever heard that term, that's referring to a whole web app and a database. Without a database, you're not doing full stack web development. But yeah, some things you do just have to, if you didn't get it, yeah, 4chan. By the way, don't actually go to 4chan. I'm not using that as a good example of anything, but it gets, I don't know. But that's effectively, that's probably the most popular example of an image bulletin board. Are any of these questions still? I want to get on to my demo. Minutes. No more questions about homework 2? So I'm going to move on and not talk about homework 2 like ever again till next semester. Any other homework 2 questions? I mean, unless people ask questions, I suppose, but I'll always answer questions. But especially next Friday when everyone starts the homework. By the way, if you're starting this one, if you actually are doing that next Friday, starting this homework, there's a huge difficulty increase from homework 1 to homework 2. Like you're not gonna make it anywhere on this homework. All right, everyone good? Everyone feeling okay? Yes.
Do you know if Chrome forces you to read twice, even if your request has you?
Chrome usually does, yeah. When you're uploading an image, if there's no image in the form, Chrome usually sends the whole thing. But once there's an image, Chrome is, that browser that likes to send it twice, likes to send 2 parts. So if you're testing Chrome and running into that, try Firefox or something else. And maybe you can get through Objective 2 before having to think about Objective 3. But Chrome, unfortunately, the most popular browser, does do that pretty consistently. An actual question chat? Oh boy, I'm so excited. Examples using TensorFlow, please. Objective 5 of token value equal empty string, generate 1 and set it as value if the token, if token has some value, append a character on the end. Objective 5, if token value, hold on, I gotta parse this. Value is the empty string, generate 1 and set it of value. I'm not sure I understand what that means. If value has some value, append a character onto it. Value. I mean, the token on the front end, the token shouldn't be empty string. Like if we're grading and we see a token value of empty string, like you didn't do tokens at that point. So I'm not sure I understand the question. Because there won't be a token field in your form. There won't be a hidden input with the token until you do Objective 5. And once you do Objective 5, you'll have an actual value on there. If somebody submits, and if you're talking about the server side, somebody submits a request, like we deleted the token's empty string to your server, you should just reject that request. Just don't do anything with it. You don't have to generate a token there. Don't generate another token until they request your root page again. Then you're going to generate another token automatically, just by the way your code is written. Tutorial on how to get easy 6 figures with 312 project. Just do the project. Do the project. When you graduate, you have, honestly, like even without 312, but all the skills that we teach you in all these courses, you graduate with all those skills, you can get 6 figures. Assuming you live in a high cost of living area, you can get 6 figures. In Buffalo, not so much. But if you want to move to California or New York City, yeah, just graduate, you'll get 6 figures. I don't want to go on this tangent too long, but like these courses are hard, right? Like you kind of go through torture in a CS degree on numerous occasions. It's hard, but companies are willing to pay for that. If you're able to make it through this and learn what you're supposed to be learning, companies will pay for that and pay you well. If this were easy to do, more people would do it and the jobs wouldn't pay as much. Like there's a trade-off here. This is a hard degree and you get paid off after you graduate. I have a lot more to say about that, but I'll cut it off at that, or else I'll spend way too much time. Was the original value of the token? I have input value. So value you're going to enter into there. So the value is going to be part of your template engine, part of your templating. You'll generate a random token and then insert that into the value of the hidden field. So that's generated by you on the server. So your template would have a placeholder. In between the quotes of value, you would have a placeholder there. And then replace that placeholder with the actual token of that request. Yeah, the token will have a value after the page loads. From the user perspective, that token value will just be there. It's rendered by your template engine. Do we have the solution for homework 1? I went over some homework 1 solutions. I won't do the entire solution, but I did go over some of it, right? I went through my whole request parsing. I talked about testing it in main and things like that. I did all that in lecture. I didn't do the whole thing. I didn't do everything, but even while the homework was still out, I spoiled some of objective 4 and 5. But I'm not going to go through the entire solution. Yeah, you'll get 6 figures, but you spend half of it on rent. Exactly. Can you demo packet spoofing? No. Unfortunately, just because I've never done it before. I like literally can't. I would have to study it and everything. Okay. All right, I got to get to some demos. I didn't mean to spend that much time, but people had questions on homework 2. I think that's more of what's pertinent in your mind, so I don't mind spending time on that. All right, so let's talk about, hopefully I don't need my backup code. And I want to start with this simple page. Let's open this up. I don't want to use, if anybody's wondering, I don't want to use these because it opens in a different way. And we got not dark mode, unfortunately. All right, so I got this fantastic page, very simple little demo page, of course. We can downvote, we can upvote. Yay, go us. So what I want to show today is how to break pages. So in this code, we can look at any site that you go to. You can go crack open the code, look at the HTML, and see what's going on with it. I got 2 methods here that I can see. I have an upvote and a downvote that are called when that button is pressed. So I'm using the onClick event, and when that's clicked, I'm going to call the upvote method. If I go to sources, I can check out the JavaScript as well. Of course, I can look at it in PyCharm, but if this is a page that I'm just visiting and I want to reverse engineer this page, I can take a look at what's going on here. So I have this function upvote, which increases votes, downvote decreases votes. And what I can do in the console is instead of clicking that button, I can call upvote directly. Or for loop. So I can call upvote directly, or I can say for oh man, it's been a while since I did JavaScript. I equals 0, I less than 1,000, I plus plus, upvote. I get 1,000 upvotes. I get 1,000,000 upvotes. Oh, 1,000,000's going to take a little while, I guess. Because it does update the DOM every time, doesn't it? Oh, well. But I can manipulate this, and I can, let me just refresh this. But I can manipulate this page. So if this is a page I didn't control, I can go there and manipulate it. And write JavaScript that's going to change the page any way that I want, right? When you visit a web page, you are literally downloading the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, any multimedia. All of the front end is downloaded onto your machine. Who the hell is going to tell me I can't modify things that are on my machine? I can go in here and just, hey, we got our million. I can go in here and just change. I can have upvotes just be 100 now. You can change anything with a page that you visit. All of that code is yours. If there are checkbox, like drop-downs that some of the options are disabled, radio buttons with disabled options, or new options that you want to add, if you want to submit, like Nicholas did, and submit something other than A, B, C, D, or E for the lecture question, I don't know why you would want to, but you can add extra options. You can change things at your will. Oh, damn, that should have been the lecture question today. Submit anything other than A, B, C, D, or E. Damn it. Missed the opportunity. Yeah, maybe I'll do it Friday. Maybe that'll be the lecture question Friday. Damn it. Could that still be the lecture question today? I didn't upload the grader yet. I could. I'm not going to do it. Next semester, I'll do it. I got to have it in my head early so I can build up to it and everything. All right, so we can change anything we want with a page we visit. That's basically yours, your copy of that site. You can change anything you want. So we can also do something like set interval, function. Oh, I don't have to do that. I don't have to get that complicated. I can upvote, and then let's say 50. So now every 50 milliseconds, this is going to call the upvote function, and I'm going to get, and it's going by hundreds, of course. And I'm going to get that very fast upvoting. If I want to go every 4 milliseconds, I can get it upvoting a lot faster. So we can go to the page, and we can break anything we want. So if I want to go to this page and just have an automatic upvoter, I got that functionality. If you want to break any idle games or clicker games, I usually break cookie clicker in this demo, but I've kind of revised it a little. Mostly because I think all of you saw me do that in 1.99, so I just don't want to do the same thing twice. But I have this JavaScript that I want to run when I visit this page. But if I refresh the page, there's no database, of course, here. There's no server-side anything. But if I refresh the page, I have to do that again. I got to go back to my page. My JavaScript's changed. It's going by ones now again. It would get tedious if I want to do this every time I visit the page, if I want to run some code. So that's where browser extensions are going to come in. So browser extensions are going to give us a way to run JavaScript every time we visit a page automatically. So with this, we need a very specific structure. We need a manifest.json, which I have right here, which I didn't feel like memorizing, so I just had this set up for the example. And I'm going to change a few things here. Well, first, let me create my JavaScript. I'm going to create my JavaScript file. I'll call it breakthings, I guess. Breakthings.js, and I want this code to run whenever I visit that page. I want to start my upvoter every time I go to that page. So what I'm going to change here, most of this is just boilerplate. This is the name of my extension. I just call it lecture extension. Manifest version 2, I don't know, they might have a newer version. I don't know. 2 has all the features I need. And then the version of my app, this is pre-release, so I'm going to have major version 0 and then 0.1, just arbitrary. I chose 0.1. I'm going to set 2 things. The 2 things we really care about that really matter is the name of a JavaScript file that's going to run when a page is visited. I want to call breakthings. It's going to run as a script. And a regular expression where the URL, if it matches that regular expression, this browser extension is going to run. I'm opening this without a server, So I want to do file. I'm using the file protocol. It's too small to read, but I'm using the file protocol to read this. And I'll just say anything that opens as a file, just anything I open with the file protocol, let's run this extension. So I have my extension, and then, I always forget how to do this. Extensions, okay. I finally have the shortcut there. So I'm going to go to my extensions in my browser. It'll be a little different how to find this depending on what browser you're in, but all browsers do support extensions with this manifest.json format that we used to call these Chrome extensions, but then all the other browsers, well, so many browsers are just based on Chromium now anyway, but the other browsers like Firefox have adapted this as well, and now we just call them browser extensions. They all adapted that same format. So I'm going to find my page. I'm going to click Load Unpacked because I don't have my extension packed in a zip file. I'm going to go to wherever that is. PyCharm, examples, lecture, and I'm just going to select this entire directory. So when we load unpacked, the browser is expecting a whole directory. I'm going to add that extension. Oh, come on. Oh, damn it. Of course upvote's not defined. What am I thinking? I forgot I have to do more work here. Sorry about that. All right, so this is such a major point. I'm so mad I made that mistake. So it's going to take a bit longer, though. Document dot element by class name. I'm just going to change my HTML. All right, so an important thing here. I can't believe I forgot that one in the middle of the demo. So the JavaScript of your extension runs in a different environment as the JavaScript of your site itself. So of course I can't call upvote because it doesn't exist in this environment. The one thing that the two environments do share is the DOM. So you can read the HTML and then find the elements you want and then handle things based on that. I'm going to change my page just a little bit here. I'll call this up button, just so I have an easy way of getting this element. What? Oh, typo. Jeez. All right, so we're going to get this element by ID. Get up button. We have a bit more work to do here. Const button. Get elements by ID is not a function because of course it's not. BNT dot click. All right, so now this JavaScript we're going to put in our thing. Set interval, function, button.click 4. Extensions, reload. There we go. All right. I can't believe I did that. All right. So now every time we visit this page, the page renders, everything populates, the JavaScript of the page runs and everything, and then our extension in a separate environment is going to run, and we can manipulate all of the HTML elements on that page. So I found the upvote button, and now I'm simulating clicks every 4 milliseconds to be able to get my auto clicker working on this thing. And that's the general idea. We're going to have a manifest which says any URL that matches this, run this JavaScript. We're going to access elements from the DOM. When I say DOM, I just mean all the HTML elements. And the DOM is the big data structure that stores them all. And then run whatever code I want, which is going to manipulate that page any way I want. That's the general idea, and then you can use that knowledge to do whatever you want. One thing that's done with this is ad blockers. This is exactly how ad blockers work. The browser extension for the ad blocker runs whenever you visit a page, and then it looks for anything that looks like an ad, and then removes it from the HTML page. Just removes anything that it wants. All right, so I have another extension. Why do I have... So I have, this is what my favorite browser extension, actually, I don't know. It's one of my ones that I use all the time that I forget that I even have installed. So this looks a little bit different, slightly different than when you visit Netflix, right? When you usually visit Netflix, you might be able to see it briefly, and then it's gone. You get this huge splash page of Netflix saying, this is what you want to watch. You want to watch this right now, right? And I never do. So I wrote a browser extension that's going to run, whenever I visit Netflix's homepage. I'm going to run this JavaScript, which is going to find that element, which is this volatile billboard animations container. I think that's just random stuff. Did I type that, or did they actually name it that? They must have, because I'm finding it. And then any class with that name, I am going to its parent node and then removing that element from that node. Effectively removes that from the DOM. And then I scroll down a little bit. This is a little buggy. It doesn't work every time. But even when you remove it, it still plays the audio. And then I have to scroll down a little bit to get rid of that. This used to work, but Netflix must have updated something, and that doesn't work anymore. So now when I go to Netflix, I forgot that splash page even exists, to be honest. I was using somebody else's machine, and I saw that, and I'm like, oh, my God, that is what Netflix does, doesn't it? Because I just always remove that. So things like this, anything that annoys you about a web page, anything you don't like, I usually show Reddit. Do I have it on here? Vote extension. Let's see what I did last time with autovote. I find the button. Oh, I actually read the text of the button last time. I don't think I do. But I had a Reddit one. You have the sidebars. It takes up a lot of room. I just want the content there. Remove the sidebars, things like that. Anything you want to change with the web page, you do have to be a little careful. I feel like I have to say this. Be a little careful about violating terms and services. I mean, ad blockers themselves, I'm sure, violate all kinds of terms and services. So just be aware of that at the very least. But you're downloading their code onto your machine. You have access to it. You have control over it. Do what you want with it, right? Like, try not to do anything illegal, but you have a lot of access there. This is one of the more... Like, I don't have an assignment where I say write a browser extension or anything, but this is one of the more practical things that you get in this class of how to really improve your web experience. And if you make any cool extensions, feel free to share them too. I'm waiting for somebody to make an extension that makes the hub more bearable. Would be nice, but I don't even know if that can be done. It's so bad. Just change the whole website. I fell behind on chat. Was there anything in here that should really be addressed? Okay, just chatting. All right, any other questions? I feel weird ending early on the browser extension lecture. This is usually a more fun one. Yeah. I wish I thought of that other lecture question earlier. This is a hard question for some people. And once you submit the question, you're free to go. I'll see everyone Friday.